the IATF 16949 podcast, where we talk about all things automotive. Find us on our channel at youtube.com/IATF 16949 auditing, or visit our website at www.iatfglobaloversight.org. This is the IATF 16949 podcast.
We had talked about major nonconformities as a special audit, and that is more regulated on the time that the auditor must spend on site. What about for a client? There's update that they need.
Yeah, no, great question. So I think two things. One, the good news with Rule 6 is there's a very sort of easy to understand picture image of the non-conformity management process. I think broadly speaking, it is similar to Rules 5th. So it's still a sort of 90-day process from the non-conformity being issued at the closing meeting of the audit to a decision being made by the certification body, and in fact an on-site special audit for a major non-conformity within 90 days. And that special audit will determine what happens next, whether the client's certificate is reinstated or is withdrawn. And Devin, as per Rules 5th, a major non-conformity does trigger the suspension process. So again, the client's IATF certificate is in a state of suspension pending the effective implementation of corrective actions, and those being verified by the auditor through an on-site special audit. I think if we look at the timeline of the non-conformity from a client perspective, I guess the biggest change is the initial submission, their response to the non-conformity, which for Rule 6 is now 15 days. So the timing starts from the closing meeting date of the audit that includes the major non-conformity. The next step in the non-conformity life cycle is the client submits a 15-day response. And under Rules 5th, that was a 20-day response. So that's been shortened. That period of time for the client to respond has been reduced to 15 days. And then there's a period there between 15 and 30 days of the audit team either accepting the client response or rejecting it and requiring the client to resubmit. I think two things. One, if the client doesn't effectively respond to the non-conformity, under Rule 6, the certification body has the authority to fail the audit. So under Rules 5th, there was you kind of had to go through the 90-day process, but under Rule 6, the CB has much more authority to say that's an unacceptable response. I'm failing the audit, and again, your certificate will be withdrawn. So yeah, 15 days to get the initial submission, 60 days for the client to submit all of their verification activity, and then 90 days for the certification body to go on site and undertake the special audit to determine how effectively the client has addressed that major non-conformity. And as we kind of mentioned earlier, Rule 6 is defining how long that special audit is going to be in terms of the verification of the major. So between 1 and 3 hours for each major non-conformity.
Yeah, so just to kind of recap that right now is obviously the timing is still 90 days. It's just little adjustment here and there on when the various steps need to be completed within that 90-day term. And obviously, if you choose not to respond, then the audit will be considered failed.
Yeah. And again, I always think it's worth pointing out this concept of a special audit, the CB undertaking a special audit. A major has been raised. The CB has 90 days to undertake the special audit. It is kind of it's a one-time event. It's not like they can do a special audit and then find that the non-conformity management has been ineffective and so it's okay, we'll come back again. We've still got time within the 90 days. That's not an option. It's a one-time event. And from a client point of view, it's really important they do an effective job, because if the certification body auditor deems it to be ineffective, then they lose, their certificate is withdrawn. So it has big implications. So really important, again, the effective NC management.
Absolutely. And then on the same line of NC management, now, think in special circumstances within Rules 5th, there was an option to have 100% result, which had to be verified prior to the next audit.
Yeah.
And that was, if they were waiting on machinery or long lead items,
Yeah.
very special circumstances. How is that addressed in Rule 6?
So this, again, it's a strange term in a way, Devin, isn't it? 100% resolved, but you're absolutely right. It's trying to speak to those, I would say, exceptional situations where the non-conformity cannot be addressed in the 90-day window that is available. And it is important to underline this is not the norm. This is exceptional cases. And Rule 6 carries over this option for certification bodies to 100% resolve a non-conformity. And what that essentially means is accepting the client responses, but acknowledging that it cannot be fixed within that 90-day period, again, for justifiable reasons. And again, there are conditions around it that would need to be respected, obviously. But what rules says in those cases, a special audit needs to happen to verify the effectiveness of the corrective actions for those 100% resolved non-conformities. And that special audit, has to take place no less than 90 days before the next regular audit. So it has to take place before the next scheduled audit, ideally as close as possible to the original 90-day timing that we're all striving for. But it would be in line with the corrective action plan from the client. That would really determine when that special audit, on-site special audit, took place. But as I say, it has to be a minimum at least 90 days before the next regular audit.
Yeah, so a bit of a change there, right? Because previously before, now it's more specific on at minimum 90 days before.
Exactly.
And then go ahead.
Devin, just on that, the other thing, just while I think about it, it's really important because at that special audit, even though for the non-conformity, the suspension has been lifted and the non-conformity is deemed to be 100% resolved pending this one-time special audit, at that special audit, it is possible for the certification body to deem the corrective action to be ineffective and for that client certificate to be withdrawn at that point. So there's no need for a further period of suspension or anything else. It's a decision from that special audit to either, again, close out the 100% resolved non-conformity or withdraw the certificate if the client hasn't done an effective job on the implementation of those long lead items.
Yeah, that's absolutely, and that probably should be discussed between the certification body and the client when the client's required to submit the results of the corrective action 30 days prior to them coming on site for that 100% resolved audit.
Yeah, Devin, it's a good point. The assignment of 100% resolved again would be done in the early stages of the non-conformity, not at the end of the non-conformity. So you wouldn't do a special audit within the 90 days and suddenly change a non-conformity to 100% resolved because they haven't done it in the 90-day window. This is an assignment that would happen at the 30-day point in the non-conformity management process. And so up front you're saying, based on that corrective action plan that you've sent on the 15-day point, I can see that there is an item there that goes beyond the 90 days. So the CB then has to decide whether or not it's justifiable to assign the 100% resolved status. Again, I'm going to repeat it. This is not normal. So we would expect non-conformities to be addressed within the 90 days. We would not expect there to be cases, or at least not many cases, where there are non-conformities that go beyond that 90-day and are assigned with this term 100% resolved. And we obviously monitor that. It's seen in the IATF database.
The IATF 16949 podcast, where we talk about all things automotive. Find us on our channel at youtube.com/IATF 16949 auditing, or visit our website at www.iatfglobaloversight.org. This is the IATF 16949 podcast.